My name is Sarah. I'm 28 years old, and I really thought I had found the love of my life. You know that feeling that finally everything made sense? That all the bad stories, all the relationships that didn't work out, were just preparation for this moment? That's exactly what I felt when I looked at Mark. We met at a cafe in Portland, on a cold October morning, one of those mornings when you just want to stay home in your pajamas, but something pushes you out the door. I had gone to get my usual almond milk latte, and when I reached the counter to pick it up, our hands touched the same cup. I know, it sounds like a movie scene, but that's exactly how it happened. He smiled in that half-shy, half-confident way, and said, "I think fate wants us to have this coffee together." And we did. We talked for 3 straight hours, and when I realized it, the sun was already setting, and I hadn't even noticed the time passing. Before continuing, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more real stories like this, because what comes next will leave you speechless. And tell me in the comments, have you ever experienced something like this? Have you ever trusted someone blindly and then discovered you were being deceived? Where are you watching from? Send your city. I want to know who's with me on this journey. And if you've been through something similar, leave a heart in the comments so I know I'm not alone in this. Because folks, what I'm about to tell you now completely changed my life, and maybe it will change your way of seeing relationships too. The first 6 months with Mark were magical. There's no other word for it. He was attentive in a way I had never experienced before. He sent good morning messages every day, always with some sweet phrase or some meme that he knew would make me laugh. On weekends, we explored Portland together, went to food trucks, visited old bookstores, walked in Forest Park for hours talking about everything and nothing at the same time. He knew my dreams, my insecurities, my whole story. I told him about my dad who had left when I was a child, about how that made me fear abandonment, and he swore, looking into my eyes, that he would never leave me. "You're different, Sarah," he would say. "You're the person I've been waiting for." And I believed him. God, how I believed him. After 8 months together, he asked me to move in with him at his apartment in Southeast Portland. It was a nice loft, with big windows that let in that golden late afternoon light. I hesitated at first, because I'd always been independent, always had my own space, but he was so convincing. We already spend every day together anyway. It makes sense to share a real home, he argued. And there was that smile of his, that tight hug that made me feel safe, so I said yes. I sold some furniture, donated others, and took my things there on a sunny June afternoon. He helped me unpack everything, and that night we toasted with cheap wine sitting on the living room floor, planning our future together. I remember thinking, this is it. I've finally found my place in the world. Life together was good. At least that's what I thought. We had our routine. I worked as a graphic designer from home. He was a software engineer and went to the office 3 times a week. On other days, he worked from home too. We cooked together, watched series cuddled on the couch, made plans for the future. He talked about marriage, about maybe moving to a bigger house, maybe having children someday. I imagined what our life would be like 5, 10 years from now. In my fantasies, we would grow old together, happy, in that simple but deep way. I posted photos of us on Instagram with passionate captions, and my friends commented on how we were the perfect couple. My mom loved him, said I had finally found a real man, someone who would take care of me. And me? I was on cloud 9, completely blinded by the love I felt. But you know when you look back and realize that all the signs were there, screaming in your face, but you simply didn't want to see. That's exactly what happened to me. Everything started so subtly that I didn't even notice at first. Mark started spending more time at the office. "New project, babe. Sorry. I'll be home late today," he would text. I would respond with, "It's okay, honey. I'll wait for you with dinner ready." And I would wait, sometimes until midnight, 1 in the morning. He would arrive tired, say it had been a tough day, give me a quick kiss on the forehead, and go straight to the shower. When he came out, he would eat quickly and go right to sleep. I tried to start conversations, asked about his day, but the answers were getting shorter and shorter, vaguer. It was okay. Nothing much. Just work, you know how it is. And there was the phone. Folks, his phone became practically an extension of his body. But not in the normal way everyone carries their phone. It was different. He started always leaving it face down, something he never did before. When a notification sounded, he would grab it quickly, glance at it, and turn off the screen right away. Once I was sitting next to him on the couch, and a message appeared on the screen. I wasn't trying to spy. I swear, the screen was right there in front of us. But he turned it so fast he almost knocked over the glass of water that was on the coffee table. "Sorry, Reflex," he said, laughing, but the laugh didn't reach his eyes. And I let it go, because after all, everyone has a right to privacy, right? Or at least that's what I kept repeating to myself every time that little chill in my stomach insisted on appearing. The outings with friends also increased. "The guys from work are going to a bar after work. Can I go?" he would ask. But he already had his jacket in hand, was already leaving. And I, wanting to be the cool girlfriend, the one who's not jealous, the one who trusts, would say, "Sure, honey, have fun." But deep down, way deep down, there was a tiny voice saying something was wrong, because it wasn't just once a week, it was 3, 4 times, and he never invited me anymore. At the beginning of the relationship, we did everything together. I met all his friends. We went out as a group. But now it was always, "Oh, it's just work stuff, you'd be bored," or "We're going to talk about code the whole time. Better you stay here relaxing." And I would stay, alone in that apartment that was supposed to be our home, but that increasingly seemed only his, with my things scattered around as if I were just a visitor. The worst were the moments of intimacy, or rather, the lack of them. We who before could barely keep our hands off each other, who had sex almost every day, suddenly had become practically roommates. He always had an excuse. He was tired, had a headache, needed to wake up early the next day. When I tried to initiate something, wear that lingerie he loved, make that special meal, set the mood, he would reject me gently but firmly. "Not today, babe, I'm exhausted," and he'd turn to the side to sleep. You know how that messes with a woman's self-esteem? I started looking at myself in the mirror and wondering what was wrong with me. Had I gained weight? Was I no longer attractive? Had he gotten tired of me? These questions hammered in my head every night, while I lay awake next to him, listening to his breathing, feeling his body so close but at the same time so distant. I tried to talk about it a few times. I would sit with him on the couch, in the calmest and most loving tone possible, and say, "Honey, I feel like we're distant lately. Is everything okay with you? With me? With us?" And he always had a ready answer, always had a justification that seemed to make sense. "Sarah, it's just a phase. Work is tough, you know, but I love you. Nothing has changed." And he would hug me, and in that hug I wanted so badly to believe it was true that I believed, or pretended to believe. Because the truth is that my heart already knew, my instinct was already screaming, but my head still wanted to protect that dream we had built together. So I swallowed the doubts, the insecurities, and kept pretending everything was fine. I kept being the understanding girlfriend, the patient partner, the woman who waited for things to get better. Because it would get better, right? It had to get better. It was on a Tuesday, July 23rd, at 3:30 in the afternoon. I know the exact date and time because some moments mark you in a way you never forget. They're engraved like invisible scars in your memory. Mark had left for another meeting that would last all day, and I was working from home, finishing a project for a client. I got up to get water in the kitchen and passed by the bathroom. The door was open, and my gaze automatically fell on his hairbrush that was on the sink, and that's when I saw it. A long blonde hair, wrapped around the teeth of the brush. I stopped. I felt my heart race. My hair is dark brown, short to shoulder length and completely straight. That hair was definitely not mine. For a second, I tried to rationalize. Maybe it was from a friend who had visited, but we hadn't had anyone over in weeks. Maybe it was old, from before I moved in, but I cleaned the bathroom every week myself. I had just cleaned 3 days ago. That hair was new, recent. I felt my hands start to tremble. I picked up the brush and stared at that blonde strand as if it were a poisonous snake. My breathing became heavy. The apartment suddenly seemed too quiet, that kind of silence that weighs, that suffocates. I went back to the bedroom, staggering, and sat on the bed, still holding the brush. My mind was racing, trying to find any logical explanation. any justification that wasn't the obvious one. But there wasn't. There simply wasn't. And that's when a crazy idea crossed my mind. One of those ideas that seem absurd, but that you feel deep down you need to do. I needed proof. I couldn't just accuse him based on a strand of hair. He would deny it, say I was crazy, paranoid. So I had a crazy theory. What if I put some of my perfume on the brush? What if I marked the bathroom items in a way that only I would know? I grabbed my favorite perfume, that Chanel he had given me for my birthday, and gave 2 light sprays on his brush, on the towels, even on the shower sponge. It was a striking perfume, floral but woody, impossible not to notice. If another woman used these things, she would definitely smell it. And if she did, maybe she would make some comment. Maybe he would give himself away somehow. I know it sounds crazy, and maybe it was, but at that moment I needed something concrete, something that would prove I wasn't going insane. I spent the next few days on maximum alert, analyzing his every move, every word, every expression. I watched to see if he commented on the perfume, if he reacted differently when using the brush, and I noticed things that had previously gone unnoticed. He would come home and go straight to the shower, every single day, without exception. Who comes home from work and goes straight to the shower? Before he would arrive, kiss me, we'd talk for a bit, and only then would he shower. Now it was as if he needed to clean himself of something, erase evidence, and the clothes. He started washing his own clothes, something he never did. Let me wash them. I need to work out anyway, he would say, grabbing the clothes before I could touch them. And the different perfume I sometimes smelled on him, a sweet, feminine scent, that was definitely not mine. When I asked, he said it was from some coworker who had hugged him, and I wanted to believe. I swear, I wanted to. On Friday of that same week, it happened. I had just gotten out of the shower when I heard his phone vibrate on the bed. He was in the kitchen making coffee. I don't know what came over me, but I looked. The screen was lit up with a message. "Babe, do you still have my perfume on your things? It's hard to get out. Even the brush smells, ha ha ha. When are you coming to my place again? I miss you." My world collapsed. I felt the ground slip from under my feet. My legs weakened, and I had to sit on the bed to avoid falling. I read it again, and again, as if reading it more times would change the meaning of the words. But they didn't change. There was the proof. My crazy theory had worked. Another woman had used his things, had smelled my perfume, and found it funny. And worse, she had enough confidence to joke about it, to ask when he was coming back. This wasn't an isolated case, a one-night betrayal. It was a parallel relationship. It was another life he was living while I waited for him at home like an idiot. I heard his footsteps coming back to the room and, reflexively, I put the phone exactly in the position it was before. My heart was beating so hard I thought he would hear it. He came in smiling, with 2 cups of coffee, completely oblivious to the fact that my world had just imploded. "Coffee for my beautiful girl," he said, handing me the cup. I took it with trembling hands, trying to control my facial expression. He didn't notice anything or pretended not to. Grabbed his phone, looked at the screen, and I saw it. I saw the exact moment he read the message. I saw the change in his expression, that microsecond of panic that he tried to quickly hide. He typed something fast, deleted the notification, and put the phone in his pocket. "I'm going to take a quick shower, and we can watch that movie you wanted," he said, kissing my forehead. And I stayed there, sitting, holding that cup of coffee, feeling the hot tears begin to fall down my face. Silent, devastating. I couldn't hold it in for long. As soon as I heard the shower turn on, I broke down. I started crying in a way I had never cried before in my life. That kind of crying that comes from a place too deep, that hurts in your chest, that cuts your breath. I put my hand over my mouth to muffle the sobs because I didn't want him to hear. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of knowing he had destroyed me. I went to the living room staggering, sat on the floor leaning against the couch, hugging my legs against my chest, and let everything out. All the doubts I had swallowed, all the times I pretended everything was okay, all the pain of feeling not enough, everything came to the surface at once. And the worst was the feeling of stupidity, of naivety. How had I not seen it? How had I believed every lie, every lame excuse? I felt like the dumbest woman in the world, My head started making that movie that every betrayed woman makes. Who was she? How long had this been going on? Where did they meet? Did he take her to places that were ours? Was she prettier than me? More interesting? More everything? And worse, did he love her? Or was I just convenient, the woman at home while he had fun with the other one? Each question was like a stab. I grabbed my phone with trembling hands and, in an impulsive decision, opened his Instagram. I started looking at the photos, the people he followed, and there she was. I don't know how, but I knew. She was a blonde, tall, perfect smile, one of those who posts photos every day at the gym, at fancy restaurants, traveling. I clicked on her profile and saw that she started following him 6 months ago. 6 months, half the time we had been living together. I felt a wave of nausea rise. The phone fell from my hand and I just stayed there, on the living room floor, looking at that apartment I had helped decorate, where I had placed my hopes, my dreams. Every corner of that place now seemed contaminated. The table where we had breakfast together on Sundays, the couch where we cuddled to watch movies, the kitchen where I made his favorite foods. Everything seemed fake now, the set of a play where only I didn't know I was acting. I felt so humiliated, so small. I thought about all the times I turned down invitations from friends to stay home waiting for him to arrive. I thought about how I defended him when my friend Rachel said she found him strange lately. "You guys don't know him like I do," I had said, and it was true. I didn't know him. I was living with a stranger. When I heard the shower turn off, I quickly dried my face and went to the bedroom pretending I was working on my laptop. He came out of the bathroom just in a towel, wet hair, smelling like soap. He looked at me and frowned. "Are you okay? Your eyes are red." I looked at him, and for the first time I felt like screaming, throwing everything in his face, asking who he thought he was to treat me like this. But nothing came out. I just said, "Allergies. I think it's the pollen this time of year." He believed it, or pretended to believe it, and started getting dressed while talking about his day, about some meeting he had. I wasn't listening to anything. I just kept thinking, how does he do it? How does he manage to look at me, lie to me, sleep next to me every night knowing what he's doing? His coldness scared me more than the betrayal itself. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay staring at the ceiling, lying next to him who was snoring peacefully, as if he didn't have a care in the world. And maybe he really didn't. After all, he had everything. A girlfriend at home who took care of him, cooked, cleaned, waited patiently, and a mistress who probably represented all the emotion, the adventure, the new. I was security. She was adrenaline. And there I was, in the middle, feeling like the dumbest and most used person in the universe. I thought about getting up, packing my bags, and leaving right then, in the middle of the night. But where would I go? I had gotten rid of my apartment, most of my furniture, and more than that, a part of me still didn't want to believe, was still looking for some miraculous explanation that would make everything make sense again. It's funny how we cling to the very things that destroy us, as if the known pain were better than the uncertainty of the unknown. I spent the entire weekend in a zombie state, faking normalcy while dying inside. Mark suggested we go out to dinner on Saturday, go to that Italian restaurant I loved, and I went. I sat across from him, ate pasta, drank wine, smiled when necessary, and inside, I was completely shattered. He held my hand across the table and said, "I love you, you know?" And I looked into his eyes searching for any sign of remorse, of guilt, but I only saw indifference masked as affection. I replied, "Me too," and the lie came out as easily as his. Maybe we had been living a mutual lie for a while, only I didn't know it. On the way home, he was driving and I was looking out the window, watching the lights of Portland pass by, and I felt like the loneliest person in the world, even while sitting next to someone. On Sunday morning, while he slept, I grabbed his phone. The password was my birthday. It had been since always. I found it touching at the time. Now I realize it was just practical, easy to remember. I went into his messages and looked for her name. Jessica. Of course she had a pretty name. The messages were devastating. They weren't just conversations about secret meetings. They were declarations of love, future plans, inside jokes, photos. God, the photos. Of them together in places I recognized, places where he had said he was working or with friends. There was even a photo of them in bed, her wearing his shirt, the same shirt I washed every week. I read months and months of conversations. It had started as something casual, just a physical attraction, but it evolved. And the worst, in the messages he complained about me. He said I was too clingy, that I demanded attention all the time, that he felt suffocated. Each word was a stab. I took photos of everything with my phone. I don't really know why. Maybe for fear he would delete everything and make me doubt my own sanity. Or maybe because I needed concrete proof to have the courage to do what I knew I had to do. I put his phone back exactly where it was and went to the living room. I sat on the couch and stared at that apartment. Suddenly everything made sense. Why he had insisted so much that I move here, instead of us looking for a new place together. Because this was his territory, where he had control. I was just a tenant in his life, not a partner. I felt such great anger growing inside me that my hands trembled. But along with the anger came something I didn't expect. Absolute clarity. For the first time in months, I knew exactly what I needed to do. When he woke up and came to the living room all sleepy, stretching his arms, smiling at me, I simply said, "We need to talk. Now." His smile disappeared. "About what?" he asked, but there was already a defensive tone in his voice. I took a deep breath and let it out. About Jessica. I saw the color drain from his face. He tried to pretend he didn't know what I was talking about. What Jessica? But his voice trembled. I grabbed my phone and showed him the photos I took of his conversations. He was silent for a moment that seemed like an eternity. Then he tried the classic strategy. He turned the tables on me. "You went through my phone? You invaded my privacy? See, it's exactly this kind of suffocating attitude that drives me crazy." I started laughing. A humorless laugh, almost hysterical. "Seriously? You're cheating on me for months and the problem is that I found out?" The argument escalated quickly. He tried to minimize it, said it wasn't serious, that he was going to end it with her, that it had been a mistake, that he truly loved me. The classic excuses every cheater uses when caught. But I no longer believed anything that came out of his mouth. Every word sounded false, calculated. "You knew how afraid I was of abandonment. You knew my whole story, knew my wounds, and you still did this to me," I said, and my voice broke. He tried to approach, to touch me, but I recoiled as if his touch burned. "Don't touch me. Never touch me again." He stood still, not knowing what to do, perhaps for the first time realizing that he had truly lost. "Sarah, we can work this out. We can do couples therapy. I'll end it with her today, I swear. Just give me a chance." I looked at him, at that man I had loved so much, that I had planned an entire life with, and all I felt was nothing. Love had died at that exact moment. "I'm leaving here. Today," I said, with a firmness I didn't even know I had in me. He tried to argue, said the apartment was his, but that I could stay until I found another place, that it didn't need to be like this. But I had already made my decision. I started throwing my clothes in suitcases, my toiletries in boxes. He stood at the bedroom door watching me, trying to say something from time to time, but I was no longer listening. I was focused on getting out of there as quickly as possible. I grabbed my laptop, my documents, my essential things. The rest, the things I bought to decorate the apartment, the gifts I gave him, everything stayed behind. I didn't want anything anymore that reminded me of that place, of that period of my life. I called my friend Rachel and asked if I could stay at her place for a few days until I got organized. She didn't even ask why, just said, "I'm already on my way to pick you up." The 2 weeks I spent at Rachel's house were the hardest of my life. I alternated between intense anger and deep sadness. There were days I woke up with so much anger that I wanted to call him and scream everything I felt, list every lie, every time he made me feel crazy for questioning reality. And there were days I could only stay in bed, crying, hugging a pillow, questioning what was wrong with me that made him look for someone else. Rachel was an angel. She didn't try to cheer me up with ready-made phrases like, "You'll get over it," or "There are other fish in the sea." She just stayed by my side, held my hand, let me cry on her shoulder, and when I asked, we watched bad movies and ate ice cream until we felt sick. Mark tried to contact me several times. Calls, messages, emails. It started with apologies, then promises, then declarations of love, and when none of that worked, He moved on to provocation. He said I was overreacting, that cheating happens in every relationship, that I was immature for not being able to forgive. I blocked him everywhere. I didn't want to hear his voice anymore, didn't want to read his words anymore. Every time the phone rang and I saw an unknown number, my heart would race thinking it was him trying another way. The anxiety was constant, physical. I felt it in my stomach, in my chest, that tightness that wouldn't go away. I stopped eating properly, lost 7 kilos in 3 weeks. My mom called worried because her friends had seen that I had disappeared from social media, and when I finally told her what had happened, she cried with me on the phone. The worst part was realizing how betrayal doesn't just destroy the relationship, it destroys you. My self-esteem was at rock bottom. I would look in the mirror and only see flaws. I compared myself to Jessica all the time, stalked her Instagram even knowing it would only hurt me. She was everything I wasn't. Extroverted, always surrounded by friends, always at parties, always perfect. And I kept wondering, is this what men want? Women who don't care, who are independent to the point of not needing anyone. Me, who had always been more homey, calmer, more me, suddenly seemed wrong, as if my way of loving was defective, as if I was defective. I started having horrible thoughts like, maybe I'll never be enough for anyone. Maybe my dad left because he already knew I wasn't worth it. Maybe I'm destined to be alone. There was one specific night, I think about 20 days after I left, when I was scrolling through Instagram at 3 a.m. because I couldn't sleep, and I saw it. A new photo of Jessica. She was wearing a necklace I recognized immediately. It was a necklace I had given Mark for his birthday, a unique piece I had bought at a vintage store. It had cost half my salary that month, and she was wearing it. He had given it to her. The gift I gave with so much care, choosing every detail. He simply passed on to his mistress as if it meant nothing. I threw my phone at the wall. It didn't break, but there was a mark on Rachel's bedroom wall. I started screaming, crying, punching the pillow. Rachel woke up startled and ran to the room. She found me on the floor, having almost a panic attack, hyperventilating. She hugged me tight and kept repeating, "Breathe, Sarah. Breathe with me," until I could get back to normal. It was that night that I hit rock bottom and understood I needed professional help. I couldn't continue like this, destroying myself because of someone who clearly never valued me. The next morning, still with swollen eyes from crying so much, I searched for therapists in the area and made an appointment for the following week. It was one of the best decisions I made. The therapist, Dr. Amanda, helped me understand that what I was feeling was grief. Grief for the person I thought he was, for the future I had planned, for the version of myself that existed in that relationship. And grief is painful, it's necessary, and there's no shortcut. You need to go through each phase, feel each emotion, as much as it hurts. Trying to skip stages only prolongs the suffering, so I allowed myself to feel everything, to stop pretending I was okay when I wasn't. In therapy sessions, I also began to deconstruct a lot of beliefs I had about relationships. I realized that I had put Mark on a pedestal, that I had made him the center of my life in an unhealthy way. I had put friendships aside, hobbies I loved, parts of myself, all to fit into his life. And when he betrayed me, I didn't just lose him, I lost myself too. Dr. Amanda asked me difficult questions like, "Who is Sarah without Mark?" And I didn't know how to answer. I had gotten so lost in the relationship that I forgot who I was before him, and that wasn't his fault. It was my responsibility. I had nullified myself, had accepted crumbs of attention, and called it love. I had ignored all the red flags, because I was so afraid of being alone that I preferred to stay in a relationship that was destroying me little by little. There was an exercise the therapist gave me that changed everything. She asked me to write a letter to Mark, saying absolutely everything I felt, unfiltered, without fear of hurting, just for myself, with no intention of sending it. I spent an entire afternoon writing. It was 12 pages of pain, anger, disappointment, but also of good things we experienced, of gratitude for him showing me what I no longer want in my life. At the end, I wrote everything I wished for him, and surprisingly, it wasn't anything bad. I wished that he would find what he was looking for, that he would resolve his internal issues that made him cheat, and that one day, he would mature enough not to do to another woman what he did to me. When I finished writing, I took the letter, went to Rachel's backyard, and burned it. Watching those pages turn to ashes was liberating in a way I didn't expect. It was as if each burned word took away a piece of the pain. 2 months after leaving that apartment, I finally got a new place to live. It was a small studio in Northwest Portland. Nothing luxurious, but it was mine. Totally mine. I chose every piece of furniture, every decoration detail, thinking only of me, of what made me happy. I put plants everywhere, colorful paintings on the walls, a bookshelf just for books. I created a space that reflected who I truly was, not who I thought I needed to be to please someone. On the day I moved in, Rachel, my mom, and 2 more friends came to help. We worked all day organizing everything, and at the end of the night, sitting on the living room floor eating pizza, I looked around, and for the first time in months, I felt something I had forgotten what it was like. Peace. That space was safe. It was mine, and no one could take that away from me. I started rebuilding my life for real. I went back to doing the things I loved and had abandoned, waking up early to run at Waterfront Park, going to cafes alone with a book, taking pottery classes on Wednesday nights. I reconnected with friends I had left aside. You know those friends you disappear for months because you're in a relationship bubble, and when you come back they receive you with open arms without judgment? Those. They were essential. We had dinners at my new house, game nights, group outings. I was laughing again, genuinely, without that constant weight in my chest. And I noticed something interesting. I was happier alone than I had been in the last months of the relationship. That told me everything I needed to know about how that relationship had become toxic without me realizing it. At work, I threw myself headfirst into new projects. I had spent months doing the minimum, without creativity, without energy. Now I was full of ideas, taking on new clients, doing work I was proud of. My portfolio improved dramatically, and with that came better opportunities, bigger clients, more challenging projects. I realized I had put my career in second place because all my emotional energy was being drained by the relationship. Now, with that energy back, I was flying. I even managed to raise my prices, something I was afraid to do before. My bank account thanked me, and so did my professional self-esteem. I was proving to myself that I was capable, talented, that I had value regardless of whether I was in a relationship or not. Therapy continued to be fundamental. Dr. Amanda helped me work on the deepest wounds, those that came from childhood, from my father's rejection. I realized that I had spent my whole life trying to prove I was worthy of love, that I was worth staying for, and that made me accept less than I deserved, made me tolerate unacceptable behaviors, because deep down, I thought I didn't deserve anything better. We worked a lot on this, deconstructing this limiting belief. I learned that my value doesn't depend on someone choosing me, on someone staying. I am valuable for existing, period. And anyone who has the luck to be in my life needs to recognize and honor that, or doesn't deserve my time. This mindset change was revolutionary. It changed not only how I saw relationships, but how I saw life as a whole. There was a specific moment, I think about 4 months after the breakup, when I ran into Mark by chance on the street. I was leaving a meeting with a client, super well dressed, feeling confident, when I turned the corner and came face to face with him. My first instinct was to panic, but I took a deep breath and stood my ground. He looked surprised, said, "Hi," kind of awkwardly. I responded politely, but coldly, and was going to keep walking when he said, "You look different. Are you well?" I stopped, looked at him, and for the first time since we met, I really saw him. Not the idealized version I had created in my head, but who he really was. An insecure man, who needed validation from multiple women to feel relevant, who didn't know what he wanted from life. And I felt pity. Not anger, not love, not hurt, just pity. "I'm great, thanks," I replied, and continued on my way without looking back. That was more empowering than any dramatic confrontation could have been. That night, sitting in my apartment, drinking tea and listening to soft music, I reflected on everything that had happened. 6 months ago, I thought my life was over. I thought I would never get over it, that I would carry that pain forever, that I would never trust anyone again. But there I was, not just surviving but thriving, stronger, more aware, more myself than I had been in years. The betrayal, as much as it hurt terribly, had given me a gift. It had forced me to find myself again, to rebuild my life on solid foundations, based on who I really was, not on who I thought I needed to be. And that was priceless. Not that I was grateful for the betrayal. Never. But I was grateful for the woman I became after it. 8 months after leaving that apartment, I finally felt complete again. Not in the romantic sense that I needed someone to complete me, but in the sense of being whole with myself, at peace with my past, excited about my future. I continued with therapy, but now the sessions were more about personal growth than trauma healing. I had made peace with what happened. It didn't mean I had forgotten. Scars exist for a reason, but it didn't hurt anymore. It just became part of my story. A difficult chapter that taught me valuable lessons about self-love, boundaries, and the kind of relationship I want and deserve in my life. It was in this phase of peace with myself that I met Daniel. And look, it wasn't anything out of a movie. Nothing like love at first sight or fate knocking on the door. We met in a pottery class, of all ways. I was trying to make a bowl, and it was coming out completely crooked. And he, who was at the bench next to me, started laughing and offered help. We talked about clay, about art, about Portland, about nothing and everything. At the end of class, he asked if I wanted to have coffee sometime. And I, who had spent months avoiding any possibility of romance, said yes. Not because he was perfect, or because I felt that explosive chemistry. I said yes, because it seemed natural. Because I was open to meeting new people without expectation, without pressure. Just letting things flow. What was different with Daniel was that I entered this with a completely different mentality. I didn't put him on a pedestal. Didn't idealize. Didn't project my future dreams onto him before really getting to know him. We got to know each other slowly, without rushing. Casual dates that became regular. Deep conversations about life, family, dreams, but also about silly things like favorite series and food we hate. And most importantly, I kept my life. I didn't cancel plans with friends to be with him. Didn't leave my hobbies aside. Didn't make him the center of my universe. I had a full life, and he was a welcome addition, not a necessity. And you know what? That made all the difference. Over time, I realized that what I felt for Daniel was different from what I had felt for Mark. It was calmer, more stable, but no less intense. It was the kind of love that doesn't keep you up at night with anxiety, but makes you sleep better knowing it exists. It was the kind of love that doesn't make you question where you're going wrong, but makes you celebrate where you're getting it right. He wasn't perfect, I wasn't perfect, but we communicated. When something bothered us, we talked. When we had doubts, we asked. When we needed space, we respected it. It was a relationship of mature adults, not two insecure people trying to complete each other through the other. And that was beautiful in a way I had never experienced before. Of course, I had my moments of fear. There were times he took a while to respond to a message, and my brain already went to the worst possible scenario. There were times I saw a different hair in his bathroom, and my heart raced before remembering it was from his sister who had visited over the weekend. The trauma of betrayal doesn't completely disappear. It leaves marks, leaves you more alert. But the difference is that now I knew how to deal with it. When anxiety came, I breathed, rationalized, and if I needed to, I talked to him. And he never made me feel crazy for having these insecurities. He understood where they came from, reassured me when I needed it, but also gave me space to work on my own demons, because ultimately, healing was my responsibility, not his. A year after ending things with Mark, I was having dinner with Rachel at that same Italian restaurant where I had gone for the last time with him. Same tables, same menu, but I was a completely different person. Rachel commented on this, said, "You're radiant, Sarah. I've never seen you so well." And I was, not just because of Daniel, who at that point was already my official boyfriend, but because of me. I had rebuilt myself from scratch, brick by brick, and the foundation was solid this time. I didn't depend on anyone to feel complete. I had amazing friends, a rising career, an apartment I loved, hobbies that brought me joy, and a love that was healthy and reciprocal. But more important than all of that, I had found myself again. I had discovered that Sarah without a relationship was strong, capable, and complete. and any future relationship would just be an addition to a life that was already full. Today, when I look back at that Tuesday in July when I found that blonde hair on the brush, I no longer feel that sharp pain in my chest. I feel gratitude. And I know it may seem strange to say this, that it may seem like I'm romanticizing trauma, or being one of those people who say, everything happens for a reason. It's not that. I will never be grateful for the betrayal itself, for the disrespect, for the pain I went through, but I am grateful for the woman I became afterwards. Because that experience, as painful as it was, forced me to look inward, to confront my insecurities, to establish boundaries, to understand what I really want and deserve in a relationship. It forced me to stop nullifying myself, to stop accepting crumbs, to stop thinking that love means suffering. Because love isn't that. It never was. True love doesn't make you question your value. It doesn't keep you up at night checking your phone, stalking social media, looking for evidence of betrayal. True love is peace. It's waking up and knowing that the person by your side chooses you every day. Consciously, honestly. It's having arguments without fear of abandonment. It's being able to be yourself without masks. It's growing together instead of diminishing yourself to fit. And most importantly, true love starts with yourself. Before you can love someone in a healthy way, you need to love yourself, respect yourself, value yourself. You need to be whole alone before sharing your life with someone. Because a relationship isn't about filling voids. It's about two whole people choosing to build something together. If you're going through something similar now, if you're in that moment of intense pain thinking it will never get better, I want you to know, it will get better. Not tomorrow, maybe not even next month, but it will. The pain will become more bearable over time. You'll start having good days among the bad days, and eventually the good days will outweigh the bad ones. You'll look in the mirror and recognize the person looking back. Or even better, you'll meet a new and improved version of yourself. You'll laugh again without guilt. You'll trust again without paranoia. You'll love again without fear. But to get there, you need to do the work. You need to feel the pain instead of avoiding it. You need to seek help if you need it. You need to allow yourself to rebuild in your own time, without rushing, without external pressure. And you know what? Sometimes losing someone is finding yourself again. It's discovering that you're stronger than you imagined, more resilient, more capable. It's learning that you don't need anyone to be happy, but you can choose to have someone in your life who adds joy, not someone who is the sole source of it. It's understanding that ending bad relationships isn't failing at love. It's honoring yourself. It's choosing your peace, your sanity, your well-being, above the illusion of a love that was never real. And that's not selfishness. It's self-love. It's the most important thing you can do for yourself. Because at the end of the day, the only guaranteed relationship you'll have for your whole life is the relationship with yourself. So make it worthwhile. That blonde hair on his brush changed my life in ways I could never have predicted. Yes, it destroyed me for a while, but it also rebuilt me stronger. It taught me to trust my instincts, not to ignore red flags, not to accept less than I deserve. It taught me that crazy theories sometimes work, that following your intuition can save you from years of suffering. It taught me that having the courage to start over, as scary as it may be, is always better than remaining in something that kills you slowly. And most importantly, it taught me that I am enough. I always was. His betrayal was never about me not being enough. It was about him not being ready, not being mature, not being emotionally available. And that's not my problem to solve. So if this story touched you in some way, if you saw yourself in some piece of it, know that you're not alone. Thousands of women go through this every day, and thousands rebuild themselves and come out stronger on the other side. Leave a heart in the comments if this story moved you, if it made you reflect on your own relationships, on your own choices. Share it with that friend you know needs to hear this, who needs to know that there is life after betrayal, that there is love after pain. Subscribe to the channel for more real stories like this, because everyone has a story, and sharing these stories makes us feel less alone in this crazy world. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new videos. And remember, you're never alone. There are millions of women who understand exactly what you're going through, who have already been through this and survived, who are on your side rooting for your healing, for your happiness, for your new beginning. You're stronger than you imagine. You'll overcome this. You'll be happy again, in a more genuine, deeper way, because it will be a happiness built on real foundations, not on illusions. And one day, you'll look back at this difficult moment, and you'll be grateful that you had the courage to choose yourself, to choose your peace, to choose to start over. Because sometimes the greatest act of love you can do is to let go of what hurts you and embrace what heals you. And you deserve healing. You deserve true love. You deserve to be happy, and you will be.